Hey everybody, Steve Billman here. Thank you so much for joining me. Today we are going to continue our series called Mastering Rhythm. And this will be the third video. And today we are going to talk about eighth notes. So this is exciting because this starts to bring in a subdivision of the quarter note, which is going to be fun. So in the first two videos, we talked about whole notes, half notes, and quarter notes. And we also talked about the time signature. In this case, we're dealing with 4/4 time. And we said that the top number represents the number of beats in a measure, in each measure. And the bottom number we look at as a fraction, a quarter. So that means that the quarter note is representing the beat or the count. Okay? And when we broke those rhythms down, the whole note got 4 counts or 4 beats, and it took the whole measure, right? The half note got 2 beats or 2 counts, and we needed 2 to fill up one measure of 4/4 time. And then the quarter note got 1 beat each, right? So it took 4 quarter notes to fill in a measure of 4/4 time. What we're going to do now is, like I just mentioned earlier, we're going to subdivide. It's going to be the first subdivision of the quarter note. And what do I mean by that? It simply means that we're going to take the quarter note now and we're going to cut it in half. So instead of just the quarter note being on every beat, now we're going to go to eighth notes, which is going to subdivide the beat into 2 equal factors. Okay, so there's going to be a different counting system, which I'll talk about in a second. But the way that, with that in mind, the way an eighth note would sound is this. This is the quarter note. Then there's going to be 2 evenly spaced notes sung per every snap. Okay, and right now I'm just going to sing with a syllable. So it would sound like this. Da 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 da. So notice that the first eighth note is still representing each beat, each snap, right? Da da da, right? Each downbeat is still being represented. But the second note, or the second eighth note, is going to represent the end of the beat, okay? And this is where we're subdividing the beat. We're taking 1 beat and we're putting 2 notes in the space of that 1 beat, okay? All right, so how do we count this? Well, the downbeats, the first eighth note is still going to represent whatever beat we're on, okay? Just like quarter notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? But the second eighth note now is going to represent, what we call the upbeat. And we're going to use the word end on that upbeat, okay? Now, again, like I said in the introduction, there are different counting systems. One's not necessarily better than the other, but this is the one I chose to use because I had to choose one. So for every number, after we hit that first eighth note is going to be the number, there's going to be an end after it, okay? So example, here we go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, okay? Now, when the tempo gets faster, sometimes it's hard to say the end, right? The D on the end of that. So a lot of times I'll just say N, like I guess EN, it would be N. But when we put the rhythms up later on, you're going to see that the end that we're saying end is going to be represented by the letter A. So you're going to see the number 1 and then the letter A, end, 2, and so forth. Okay, but again, to make it easier, I just will usually say N, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So the other thing I want you to see is that the notes are evenly spaced. The eighth notes are evenly spaced. So it's not 1 and 2 and 1 and, that's uneven, okay? The notes have to be evenly spaced. So when I do it, when you hear me do it, you'll hear that each note is getting the equal amount of value or equal amount of space. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. It's what we call right in the pocket. We want to make sure that every eighth note is right in the pocket, because this is going to be developing our time. And as a musician, one of the most important things we have is our time. Our time needs to be really solid. And that's why you're gonna practice with the metronome as usual, okay? I'm doing the snapping just for convenience right now. All right, so let me kind of visually show you how to think of these eighth notes. Remember in the first video I talked about conducting the downbeats, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, and that kind of shows you where the beats are, which is really good. There's a different way we're going to do it for the eighth notes. And what we're going to do is take our right or left hand, whichever one you want to use. When we go down, that's going to represent the counts. So that's going to represent beat 1, beat 2, beat 3, and beat 4. When we go up, that's going to represent the end of the beat, of each one of those beats. So example, 1 end, right? 2 end, 3 end, 4 end. So again, down is the number, up is the end, okay? So this will help you to visualize those eighth notes by your hand movement, okay? So as we do this, I'm going to do both. We're going to sing 4 measures of eighth notes, and I'm going to snap the downbeats, or I should say each beat. And in my right hand, I'm going to do the eighth notes, so the down and the up. And then I'm going to sing the eighth notes, obviously in my mouth, okay? So here's the beat, and you can do this with me. So these are the quarter notes, okay? Now here's the eighth notes. And I'm going to give you 3 and 4 end, and then we're going to do 4 measures of eighth notes, okay? You ready? Okay. 3 and ready, sing. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. There you go. So there's 4 measures of eighth notes. All right. There's one other thing I'm going to show you, and then we're going to get to some examples. Okay. I'm going to put it up on the screen right now, and I call this the rhythm comparison sheet. And excuse me, I have to look over here because that's where my sheet is. So what you can see is that it's a 4-bar phrase, and you can see that each one of the notes so far that we've talked about, including today, is covered in this example. So the first measure is a whole note. Second measure, we have 2 half notes, then 4 quarter notes, and then 8 eighth notes. Okay. Now, one thing before we go on, I want you to notice, and we'll get more into this in harmony and theory, but notice that when there's multiple eighth notes, they're represented by what we call a beam. Okay. Now, for the half notes and the quarter notes, they have that stem. We talked about that before, that's attached to the note head. That's that single line that goes up, right? But if you look at the last measure, the eighth notes, notice that it not only has a stem, but it has a line going across. That line going across we call a beam. And when you have multiple eighth notes, you're going to group them in either groups of 2 or 4. You're going to beam them together, all right? When there's a bar of eighth notes, then you're going to beam them, or when there's 4 eighth notes together, you're going to beam them in groups of 4s, okay? Now, why don't we, in this case, there's 8 eighth notes, why don't we beam them all together? Because there's a rule in music that you show the middle of the bar, okay? It's like in reading. If all the letters were together in the words and there was no punctuation, it would be hard to distinguish what the words were, right? It's the same here. It's harder to distinguish where the beats are if you don't show the middle of the bar. Okay, so that's the purpose of it. So the reason it's not beamed 8 notes is because we want to have a break between beat 2 and beat 3, because half the bar, beat 1 and 2, and then beat 3 and 4. Half the bar would be right in the middle of 2 and 3. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So that's just sort of a theory thing, but it's good to understand. So, but we call those beams, okay? So in that fourth measure then, they're represented as eighth notes because of those, specifically because of those beams, all right? Okay, so let's look at sort of the philosophy of this little thing that I put up here. One of the things I really love, again, I've said this before about music, is that it's creative, right? Obviously, that's a huge part of music, is that we get to be creative. But the other part I like is that there's logic in it, there's mathematics in it, and no matter what you do at the end of the day with music, especially rhythm, 2 plus 2 is going to equal 4 at the end of the day. And this is what I love about it. So what I want to show you is the top number. So you see that there's 4 measures of notes, and on the top numbers are going to represent the notes per measure, okay? So how many notes are in each measure of each one of those bars? So you notice that with the half note, in 4/4 time, we can only have one half note in a measure of 4, right? So that means there's one note in that first measure. When you go to the second measure, a half note gets 2 counts or 2 beats. So if we're just using half notes, there has to be 2 half notes to fit a measure of 4/4. So now you have 2 notes in that measure, the second measure. When you go to the third measure, quarter note gets only 1 count, so you need 4 quarter notes in that measure to fill a measure of 4/4. And the final one, the eighth notes that we're just talking about, notice that you have 8 eighth notes to fill up 1 4/4 measure. Okay, so what you're noticing, right, is that the numbers are doubling with each note value, and they're going up. So you go from 1 with a whole note to 2 with a half note, 4 with a quarter note, and then 8 with the eighth notes. All right, so that's just simple math. Each note value is doubling as we go through those note values. Okay, if you look at the bottom number is representing the number of beats per note, not per measure, but per note. So the whole note, we know, gets 4 counts or 4 beats. Half note, each one of the half notes gets 2 beats. Quarter notes, each one of the quarter notes gets 1 beat. And with the eighth notes, each one of those eighth notes gets a half a beat. So if you look at the numbers, 4 on the whole note, 2 on the half note, 1 on the quarter note, and a half on the eighth note. So in that case, the numbers are going down, right? So again, I love the logic in music. I love the technical aspect of music. Obviously, the creative part is the most important, but there is logic and there is reason within the confines of music. So I love that. All right. So I hope the eighth notes make sense. And now what we're going to do is we're going to take a little bit of time, like we did in the other videos, and we're going to do some examples. And in these examples, I'm going to include eighth notes, and possibly there might even be whole notes or half notes in there as well as quarter notes, just so that we can get a sense of the different rhythm possibilities we have in a measure of 4/4 time. Okay? All right, let's get started with that. All right, you guys, before we get to the examples, I'm going to put the music on the screen here, and I want to take a look at this just for a second. Remember, I had talked about that sometimes you're going to beam eighth notes in groups of 4s and sometimes in groups of 2s. Well, you can see on the sheet, example 1, the first group of eighth notes is 4 because there are 4 eighth notes in a row. But example 2, if you look at the first measure, notice that beat 2, there's only 2 eighth notes. So obviously we're going to beam them in groups of 2s. So sometimes you're going to see eighth notes beamed in groups of 4s when there's 4 of them. Other times it'll be groups of 2s. Okay, but it'll be one of those 2 that we'll use the beam for. Okay, either 2 eighth notes together or 4 eighth notes together. All right. So as we do these examples, we're going to start with example 1. I'm going to give you the beat. This is going to be, the count 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I'm going to give you the eighth notes with my right hand. And then we're going to sing the rhythm. And again, I'm just arbitrarily picking a note, forgive me, but just try to hang in there as much as you can. So here's the beat. Those are quarter notes. Here's the eighth note. I'll show you the eighth note. And I'll give you 3 and 4, and we're going to start example 1. Here we go. 1 and 2, 3 and 4, and 1 and 2 and 3, 4, 1, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and 1, 1, 2, 3, 1 and 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, 1, 2, 3 and 4. There you go. There's example 1. So remember, when you guys are practicing this, you're going to want to repeat that, right? Remember we talked about those repeat signs. So you're going to want to repeat that whole cycle of 8 bars one more time, and then you're done, okay? And again, make sure you're using a click. All right, example 2, let's do it. So here we go. 1, 2, ready, and sing. 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, and 2, 3, and 4, 1, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, 3, and 4, and 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 1. Okay, again, you're going to repeat that, and then one more time, and then you'll finish. All right, how are we doing? We hanging in there with these 8 notes? I hope so. Again, if you need to do these slower before you jump on the video and do the exercises with me, that's perfectly fine. You can sit with a click and do it at a very slow tempo, and you can work your way up to what we're doing now. So perfectly fine to do that. All right, let's do example 3, okay? All right, so here's a quarter note. 8th notes, 1 and 2, and ready, and sing. 1, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and 3, 1, 1, 2, 3, 1 and 2 and 3, 1, 3 and 4, 1. There you go. All right. Well, I hope this helped you guys. And again, don't get frustrated with it. It's just something new. You just have to sort of work through it. But again, hopefully the 8th notes are going to feel comfortable for you very quickly. If you're struggling with them, again, sit with the metronome and just sing 4 bars of 8th notes and try to, make sure that you're keeping them in time, okay? All right, there you go. Also, I just want to say, again, I have a book called Mastering Rhythm that will have more of these rhythms in there for you to practice, and you can get it on my website, mastermusicnow.com, okay? But again, any rhythm book will do, but it's something that you probably want to practice every day, just a little bit at a time, maybe 15 minutes. This will improve your rhythm reading immensely, just a little bit of time. Again, it doesn't take a talent to read. It's just a skill like anything else. So when you do it, the more you do it, the better you're going to get at it, okay? I think that was right. All right, you guys. Thanks a lot. I'll catch you on the next video.